Hey guys, I've been working on partnering with some newer flippers recently and been thinking about some of the things that might hold you back from jumping into your first deal if you're a little bit newer. And to me, like, the biggest thing that's highlighted is underwriting the deal. You don't always feel confident doing that until you've done a couple flips on your own, or maybe you've partnered with somebody who has done flips before. And underwriting is super important, right? Because you make all your money on the buy and then you preserve your money on the project, right? So you're not gonna buy a bad deal and then make money because you did the project super well, right? You have to buy well and then hopefully the project goes well and you keep all that money. So one big question I get is, how do you underwrite a deal? Like, what does a good deal look like, right? I'll tell you, for me personally, I try to be dollar in, dollar out on rehab. Meaning, if I'm putting $100,000 into a house, I try to also make $100,000. Doesn't really matter the price point of the house. It really just has to do with how much rehab I'm putting into it. Now, generally a more expensive house is gonna have higher margin, right? Like, it's gonna be more difficult to make $100,000 on a house that's only worth $350,000 or $400,000 after you flip it. But at those lower price points, if I'm putting $40,000 into the rehab, I try to make $40,000. Now, I can't always do that. I will go less than that if the project is super straightforward and it's like guaranteed, which is why I love townhouses, for instance, because you have no structural concerns. You don't own the roof, you don't own the sewer line, you don't own a lot of the structural stuff. You pretty much know that you're just gonna be walls in. And typically you can get really solid comps in townhouse and condo communities because all the units are identical and there's typically more sales in a community like that. So you have a pretty darn good idea where your numbers are. Another important thing is knowing your rehab numbers, obviously, because you want to be able to predict what the project looks like. So there's ways of doing this. To be honest, I use a really simple chart based on the square footage of the house. And then I have add-ons for structural stuff, like if the roof needs to be replaced or if the panel needs to be replaced or what have you. But typically if it's just cosmetic stuff, I can predict pretty accurately just based on the square footage and room and bathroom count. I'm happy to give you my spreadsheet if you like. You can reach out and I'll send it to you. But there's also other folks that talk about it on YouTube and you can use theirs if you prefer. It's also a little bit market specific. So I'm in Colorado doing projects. I'm in San Diego right now, as you can tell, but it will depend on what market you're in. It's gonna be more expensive to do rehabs here in San Diego than it is in Colorado. I also always include buffer. Right? So for any project, for the holding costs and the reno costs, I typically include a 10% buffer on that number. So if I'm going to do a $100,000 rehab, I'll call it 110. It just makes me feel a little bit safer in underwriting the deal. So that's all of your internal costs. On the external side, make sure that you are using accurate comps, right? So you're gonna see a bunch of comps and there's always gonna be some houses that sell way more than the others and you're not sure why. Don't have that be your baseline comp. I'll typically throw out the very high end and also the very low end and try to find the middle where many houses are selling at a particular price point. Then you feel pretty confident about what the value is going to be after you finish the project. So once you have all of these numbers and you see, okay, great, I'm getting dollar in, dollar out, or close to it, the other risk factors are sometimes things that people fail to consider. Like if the house is on a busy road, for instance, that's just going to take half of your buyer audience out right there. Like, even if the house is perfect for them, a lot of people, it's a deal killer to be on a busy road. Also depends what the house sides to and backs to. So you always want to take that into account. I've noticed other small things that you can't always tell, like the ceiling heights in the basement, for instance. Like if they're too low, that's basically going to be unusable space. So being in a remote market like I am, there's only, I run numbers on everything and I have a team that sees houses for me now, but there are some things that you can't tell without seeing personally, and knowing what to look for is super, super important. So I'm happy to help you. If you have questions, if you're working on your first deal or your first flip, or you just don't do a whole lot of them, I'm happy to just bounce ideas back and forth with you. I can underwrite in most markets, so I'm happy to look at it with you. Or if you want to partner with me on a flip, I'm absolutely happy to do that too. Because we have a lot of projects come across our desk, and sometimes I can't take all of them down myself. So reach out if you have funds and you're looking to either invest in a project or partner on one with me. Reach out and I'd be happy to work with you on that.